Chewing on my food time, hold it up and smoke it. Transgression, a progression of a war we ain't asked for. Transgression, a progression of a war we ain't asked for.
It's madness, yo. All the things that we could talk about.
Call it.
But let's talk about these urban circumstances real quick.
And basically, it's the
we got this.
So
Revolutionary.
Winner's frosty hand. Muhammad is the famed name, forever stand.
Standing on royal fusing of justice for the few, ridiculed by the pale terrorists bent on genocidal obsession, rooted in fear of neglection and abandonment, fueled by nightmares of ancestors' jealousy.
truth, because at the end of the day, I still want to be able to I don't dislike George Washington.
The kind of friends I think all friends should be like my friends. My friends are the kind of friends I think everyone needs. My friends see the things at times I don't see. My friends hate the police.
What has changed?
Are deemed the criminals, and the blacks are deemed the criminals.
Shut up and help.
Reflection ain't nothing but the inner child trying to see you. You gonna look? You gonna pick up that book?
Lord, keep me far from the faith, guide me through night and day. Teach me your ways, show me the righteous way to sway. Lord, can you teach me, please? Show me the way, I'd say. Grand Risings, and welcome back to another season of the Urban Conservative with Chaz Neal. We're excited to have you join us on this journey of thoughtful discourse and community engagement. The Urban Conservative is proudly sponsored by the Leon Block Network, an organization committed to promoting transparency, truth, and accountability in our media landscape. Here at the Urban Conservative, our mission remains steadfast to bring you the latest news directly from the streets, addressing critical topics such as gun violence, crime, politics, and perhaps most importantly, exploring solutions to the profound challenges our communities face. Yesterday, we went into a discussion and was talking about Minneapolis, and we were talking about, we started the week off on Monday, talking about Casey Ramirez in Princeton, Minnesota, and the cartels, and a little bit of, CIA connections. And then Tuesday, we started to discuss Minneapolis and show you a little bit of the current gang structure, the current, fentanyl and things that are going on in Minneapolis. Yesterday, I brought on Robert. He is here again today. And we discussed Jerry Half and that whole situation, as well as some other things. And this morning, we're going to continue that. And I'm going to let Robert speak. I'm going to zip my lips, and I'm going to let Robert speak for a second. And so what we're going to do today. So there he goes.
I just wanted to real quick bring up the stuff about Mary Moriarty's charging decision yesterday. And if people actually just go look at the complaint, I had done a slowed down video, which we can post below. It's everything that I saw in the video, except for it doesn't really say certain parts of it. The biggest thing that caught my eye with it was that whoever is on the driver's side is supposed to be the lead, and that person is supposed to be in charge of what's going on at the scene. The passenger's door was opened while he was still giving commands and talking with the suspect, and then that officer already had his weapon drawn. he almost shot that officer across from him. Bullets go through people sometimes. And then when they pinned the car up against the wall, they have one of the officers' hood slid across the hood with his firearm out against his leg. And then the other officer on the passenger side that got in front of him, and he pulled his weapon right into the officer in front of him's shoulder. Okay, so those officers are a threat to themselves or others if they can't control their weapons. Simple weapons control. Know your target and what is beyond. Safe control of your weapon. If he hadn't had his weapon drawn when he dove into that vehicle, the vehicle subsequently stopped for a second or two. He could have easily reached down, put the vehicle in park, and grabbed the keys, or guy probably wouldn't have taken off if he hadn't entered the vehicle like that. There's ways to handle things, and if you look at their training, it doesn't look like their training was followed at all, because I'm not sure in their training if running alongside of a vehicle while you're half in is part of their training. Probably not. Probably not getting in the vehicle to begin with, from what I've seen of law enforcement training. And then also, if the vehicle starts to move, you have the option to remove yourself from the vehicle. And then also, that officer that was in the back of the vehicle had no clue what was going on. He was sitting there just staring around like a bird watching, And he grabbed onto the back of the vehicle as if he's going to sit there and hold the vehicle. No, the vehicle's driving away. You have two patrol officers or two patrols behind you. You'd easily hop in a vehicle. They had actually talked about, according to the complaint, they had talked about safety measures to put in place, which they failed to. And so the officers do need to follow their training. And on Twitter, back when it actually happened, I had been arguing with people like Walter Hudson, throwing out the general orders. Okay. Yes, there's a state law that has whatever in there, but they can go more restrictive. And the state patrol's general orders are more restrictive and say that that's not a reasonable use of force. So you have to go off your training and what your department manual and stuff like that has. They didn't. Okay. As far as the whole I fear for my life thing, and you hear that a lot from officers. Yes, law enforcement is a dangerous job. However, there is also plenty of other jobs that are way more dangerous. Electrical linemen, construction, agriculture, oil field, shipping, flying. I can go down the list. There's, according to the Department of Labor and Statistics, there's jobs that are a lot more dangerous and they don't have to kill people. Yes, sometimes officers do need to use force, but they need to stay within the boundaries. And in this case, they were outside those boundaries and well outside. So.
And that's exactly the point that I've been making, you know what I'm saying? Because I know there's been different statutes thrown out. And what really shocked me was the general counsel for the Minnesota Police and Peace Officers Association, which is, and I know this guy quite well, Imran Ali, who said County Attorney Mary Motory has made politics and ideology her source material, not the law. The law is well established and clear. Law enforcement may use reasonable force if they are confronted with death or great bodily harm. The state trooper made a critical and necessary decision to use reasonable force during a dangerous and dynamic situation. Law enforcement officers die in similar situations. Now, I disagree with Ali big time, and it's sad to see that when politics are thrown into law, because law shouldn't be read by if you're a Democrat, if you're a Republican. And the part that Ali is missing out is the training. Fuck the law, because if they're going against their training, the law, that to me doesn't even matter, because you've already broke the law when you took that oath. And see, for me, when you take that oath, you're going to go by your training. You're going to follow your training. He didn't do that. So for me, the law doesn't even come into play, because he already broke so many other things for that. So why should the law protect somebody when they're not even doing what they're trained to do?
I actually took a little story. We took away my daughter's driver's license for a little bit last year because of some mental health issues. Because we weren't convinced that she wouldn't get pulled over, have a panic attack, and flee from the cops. And we straight up told her people get shot doing that. Like quite literally, my daughter's. I'm white. My daughter's white. Okay. There's reasons why I did that, because in this day and age, if that happens, you're liable to lose your life over it.
Exactly. Exactly. And I know I was talking about training. So if you go to, and I don't have the exact section, but Robert probably does. So the state troopers in a section, I think it's 8 or 9, it says shooting from or at a moving vehicle. Members shall not shoot from or at a moving vehicle except when deadly force is authorized pursuant to General Order 1027, use of force. Members should make every effort not to place themselves in a position that would increase the possibility that the vehicle they are approaching can be used as a deadly weapon against members or other users of the road. Firearms shall not be utilized when the circumstances do not provide a high probability of striking the intended target, or when there is a substantial risk to the safety or of other persons, including risks associated with vehicle crash. Now, severe and imminent threat, the fleeing driver or other person in the fleeing vehicle is believed to have recently caused great bodily harm as defined in Minnesota Statute Section 609.02, Subdivision 8, or death of another person, or it is reasonably likely to occur if immediate action is not taken to apprehend him or her. The pursuit itself does not constitute a severe and imminent threat. That is all out of the state troopers handbook. And one thing that I'm starting to realize is that training does come into play, and it should come into play. And I'm glad that, people are, I've had some great conversations on Twitter about this, and I've had people retract their statements when they've talked to other law enforcement. And to me, I think that is that's I don't know how they feel, if he should be charged or not. I didn't ask all that. But they did say that training does come into play, and that troopers are trained differently than they're more extensive when it comes to road training, to handle suspects in situations on the side of highways. And that's why they have those things in place in their training and in their handbooks. And if we're not going to go by that, if we're not going to go by their training, then the law shouldn't even really matter, because they've already broken something. They've already broken an oath. They've broken their training.
Well,
so,
I'm actually going to school for law enforcement. I'm not going to be a cop. I'm going to be a PI for the defense, and they don't know what to do with me. But I'm the first person going through the classes for it at the college I'm at. And as far as that's going to be on the opposite side. But I had a discussion in class with one of my teachers who's done a lot of training on stuff like this. He used to be a Michigan state police and stuff like that. And he even said, like, you're trained not to reach into the vehicle even for the keys and that, because you're placing yourself inside the vehicle. If the vehicle starts to move, you're likely to get drugged. So you don't even enter the vehicle like that. You know what I mean? Even for that type of stuff. So, I mean, as far as the safety goes, you also have to make sure you're using operational risk management, not placing yourself in unsafe situations.
Exactly.
Because you can't increase the risk in the situation and then blame others. Yeah. Did you have anything else on that?
No. And I'm sure there'll be time for, I mean, he was discharged yesterday. So I'm sure as the incoming days and weeks come along, that more information and other things will come out. So we'll just wait for that.
when it'll land where it lands with the courts, you never can tell. I mean, between the judges and whatever else, there's a lot more to the court system. It's basically just a play. It depends on, the director is the judge, and then you have your actors, which are the lawyers, and then you have your supporting characters, which is everybody else. It all depends on if you have the best actor and what the director decides to allow them to do.
Exactly.
I suppose I wanted to share a little bit of how I ended up looking into some of this stuff and like my background on some of that. Because what really opened my eyes is when I was in the service. I was a corpsman, so I was a medic, and we were both for the Marine Corps and for the Navy side. And when we were out at the shooting range out in Yuma, I was the standby for that while they were doing their quals. I was talking with the sergeant who had been military police over in Iraq. And he's like, you realize the entire war is just a fucking joke? I'm like, what? He's like, yeah. Karzai, the president of Afghanistan's brother, is the biggest opium dealer there is. They were at checkpoints, and they were going to stop vehicles that they knew had narcotics on there, and they got told to let them through. It was Karzai's brother. There's other times where they were teaching the Afghanis how to do the patrols for the Afghan security forces, and they were patrolling this area. They came up out of this ravine, and there's a field full of opium there. Well, there's a black vehicle that is very American with, looks like a CIA vehicle sitting there. And all of a sudden it comes across the radio, get out of there. And you never saw anything. They weren't burning the fields. They were protecting them, man. And he's like, our government's running the opium too, bro. And I was like, no way. Well, yeah, come to find out years later, dude, the guy was right on. And it's exactly what was happening. So the Iran-Contra stuff never stopped. They're still doing it. And they brainwash. Okay, boot camp, they brainwash you, and they brainwash a lot of people to get in the military too. They take 16 to 18-year-olds and they brainwash them into thinking that America's this great thing that never does anything wrong, and you need to go die for it. Come to find out, most of the time it's for corporate interests. They really don't give a fuck about America. And that's the reason why a lot of vets afterwards have problems. They realize that, the whole thing was just a racket, basically, And so I started looking into stuff. And especially being in the medical field, I followed a lot of the medical technological advancements along with the military technological advancements, because right before I got out in 2014 they had brought in some officers over to 29 Palms, and these are high-ranking officers that were set up for command positions, and they were asked if they would fire on American citizens, and it got written down who answered what. And I saw people getting out that had their entire rest of their life set up if they would have stayed in and done what the government wanted them to. So if people think that the government won't send troops to fire upon you, they are completely wrong. Okay.
So like when you were, especially, being somebody that, was in the Marines, right? Correct.
I was in the Navy. We served with the Marines too, because medics were like, you didn't belong to anybody, but you belonged to both. You know what I mean? So we were quote unquote sailors, and when we were on the Marine base, they're like, "Oh, you're a sailor." But when we were on the Navy base, they're like, "Oh, you were with you go with the Marines, so you're just a corpsman." You know what I mean? So like, nobody wanted to actually claim us.
Right. And so what I'm saying, I guess I'm meaning to ask is, what having military experience, and having the love for the country that, you have, and seeing that, you wanted to do, make a difference in the world, bless up, and seeing everything that you've seen since, reading all this information and seeing all these different names, and then especially seeing the connections and things, how did it make you feel, serving for your country now? Then, I mean, would you redo it all over again? Would you?
Hell no, I would have stayed back because you realize that what they did is in each of these wars, what they've done is they've gotten people that believe in individual constitutional rights. They believe in restriction of government, right? So what do? You get those guys, you send them overseas. They come back and, let's say they're in for 10, 20 years, however long the damn war's been going on now. They by the time they get out, the people that have stayed back have put legislation in to ruin people's rights and trample on the Constitution. And that sort of pisses me off. You know what I mean? I don't believe there's restrictions on the Constitution. Like, there's no color restrictions, right?
No.
The Constitution should apply to you the same as it should apply to me, as it should apply to anybody else in America.
Exactly.
But it's not. The equal and fair enforcement of that, liberty and justice for some, not for all, is what it's been. And seeing that really pisses me off. That's what drives me, is like, no, we need those equal rights for all, self-determination for all. I want to see strong Black communities, strong Hispanic communities, strong white communities, yes, but it's not exclusive.
Right.
And there needs to be some sort of national identity still, because otherwise, as a nation, you're going to fail if you don't have a national identity. So American first, but then, yeah, still celebrate your heritage.
Exactly.
Up here we have, Irish days. We have the German days down in Belle Plaine. You got the Czech days out in New Prague. So yeah, it's fine to have, African American history days or Somali history days. That's fine too, because we have the white ones that we do all the time too.
Right. Well, I don't want to get on a tangent too much. I want to get back into Minneapolis, and I wanted to talk a little bit. I guess I don't know how much we want to get into today, how much you want to show. I did bring up something that a screen shot from, forget what year this was, but this was when they brought Pepe to the police station and turned him in, and Keith Ellison and Jerry McAfee and Kara Levin got in a van and drove out to Chicago. And
Now, does that say Pepe or does that say Monterey Willis?
No, it says Pepe. This was Mackenzie. This was Pepe, what they wanted to go pick up from Chicago. They didn't see. That's what I thought too, because this article says Pepe, but I always thought it was Willis. They went to go get Monterey.
Because I have another article from October that said they had 3 in custody. That was AC Ford.
Yeah.
Right. It was Mackenzie, and then Shannon Bowles, and that they were still looking for Willis, which that's interesting. I'll pull that up in a second here. You can go over that article, and I'll pull up the other article in a second here.
Yeah, so I'll read it. It says, the Reverend Jerry McAfee, who helped orchestrate the surrender of murder suspect Matwai Pepe Mackenzie to Minneapolis police on Tuesday, told reporters Wednesday that he was severing ties with Minneapolis Police Chief John Liu after Liu said in a published report that he had felt misled by McAfee's intentions. McAfee and members of United for Peace, a gang coalition, were instrumental in urging Mackenzie to turn himself into Minneapolis police. Mackenzie is charged with being one of the triggermen in the September 25th shooting death of Minneapolis police officer Jerry Haff. McAfee, attorney Keith Ellison, friend Farley Cotton, and a television news crew traveled to Chicago to bring Mackenzie in. Initially, Liu expressed approval of McAfee's involvement, but then he learned of the circumstances, which included extended traveling with Mackenzie and coordinating the effort with the television crew, Lou said the group should have notified authorities as soon as Mackenzie agreed to be taken into custody. People don't have the right to assume that responsibility, Lou said. When you take that responsibility, you became the custodian of somebody charged with murder. That means you are responsible for everyone's safety, including the suspect. They should have picked up the phone and called the police. Yesterday at a news conference, of which only television stations were notified, McAfee denounced Lou's comments and said he would no longer participate in any ongoing discussions with police about better relations. I will not be and I will not tolerate my honor or my ethics being questioned by anyone, McAfee said. My reasoning and logic of going and trying to bring Pepe in was the safety of all. Lou also criticized the station that participated in the event, CARE TV, Channel 11. I think CARE was not trying to cover the news. They were trying to make the news. So that goes back even a while. And it's crazy. There's so much to this story, this whole tragic story, because not only just for Jerry Hash family. Oh yeah. And I'm definitely, Ben, you are not wrong in the least bit. You are nowhere, but there's so many people that are connected to Jerry McAfee and Keith Ellison. It's a pyramid. It's literally a pyramid. I know y'all watch them police shows, right? Like Chicago PD or New York Undercover, and they always put on the board of the suspects, and it was always a pyramid of people, right? Yeah, this shit ain't no different. It's the same thing. It's a pyramid of crooks, all the way from politicians to pastors to community leaders to city council members to park and board members. And it's ridiculous, and people just look the other way because it's been going on for years. Oh, go ahead, Robert. I'm you.
No, it's all good. I did find it. So you're right. It was Mackenzie, because it says that he's still at large.
Okay.
It was that Monterey Willis had been in trouble out there for that robbery and murder, and his lawyers had talked to get him moved up here. So that was done without the news. But no, you're 100% right on that. And see, the thing of it is, people don't realize, like, Steve Kramer was on the city council at that time. Then he goes over to DID and has been there since. So with these nonprofits, also the Minneapolis Foundation's another one. Okay, they cycle from the city, and the old police chiefs of police and mayors go over there and make hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting on that board, and they choose where that money goes in the community. And that money is for votes. That money usually doesn't do what it's supposed to do in the community. And that's been a racket that's been going on for a long time. And it's not just in Minnesota. The LA sheriff, former sheriff who's running for county commissioner out there, had a very similar thing that he exposed out there, and nothing happened to it.
You talking about Villanueva? Alex Villanueva, whatever his name is.
Yeah, I sent you the video of him. We can play a clip a little bit later or a different day on that. But yeah, what it is so, like, it doesn't sound real bad. These nonprofits too, they donate to these campaigns, right? So they just they keep on selecting who gets into office, especially for some of the non-obvious positions. Like your mayor's obviously a gimme that people are going to watch. People don't watch as much the county commissioner, stuff like that, right? Just like some of the old chiefs of police and stuff like that from up here go to what? That urban development, or you go down the list on that, right? And so all it is they move them around once they're in the system, rather than actually like doing what's best for the people. They do what's best for themselves.
And you bring up a great point, because if you look at the last few mayors, Belton, you look at R.T. Ryback, you look at Dondo, you look at Hartu, whatever her name is, they all have positions of power still to this day, even though they have so much blood and crookedness on their hands. And what trips me out is they literally deal with the same people when they were still in office. Because you look at R.T. Ryback, he controls $1 billion nonprofit that has assets over it. And I know this because I looked at their 990 forms. They have more outside business interests in other countries than they do here in America. Now, that doesn't make any sense to me. Why would a nonprofit in Minneapolis have all those business interests in the Middle East?
Global Minnesota started in 1951. The Global Minnesota program, and you can look it up.
Yeah.
It started at 1951, mainly at the U. And some of the global stuff like that, as far as cultural appreciation, isn't necessarily bad. But what they've done is try to globalize the states to the point where we are no longer a nation. And that the same groups have done it to other nations as well, and ruined other nations. And that's the thing, is we got to keep our national identity as well. But the globalization really started after World War II. And part of that was there was an overproduction, and they wouldn't have had enough jobs because things became so efficient during the war for all the returning GIs. And that's part of the reason for the GI Bill and the push for colleges and that. But also the push for globalization is we can overproduce, but we have to have places that'll take our crap that we're producing, or our stuff that we're producing. And that was a big push for the global wars. Okay. And the shipping containerization. The shipping containerization really took off in the 60s. And then that ruined a lot of the longshoremen. Before that, they had to load and unload the rail cars by hand. So you had the longshoremen. So with the containerization, that's where in the 60s, you see a lot of the decline of the inner cities and stuff, the places that used to have those jobs. And it pushed it overseas. The big shipping company that was in bed with the CIA was out of, I believe it was New Jersey. I can get the name of it. They also had a port in Texas as well. But Vietnam, right after Vietnam, they established a port there. Every place that we've had a war, basically, they established a port. And it was actually mainly for pushing the globalization. And that actually started as far as in between the Americas in the 1890s was the first Pan Am conference, Pan America conference, and their headquarters is in Washington, D.C. So this has actually been going on for quite a while, and they're playing the long game. And once you actually look at it, like if you just look at the short right now, people are like, yeah, it's an issue. You have to back up and look at the issue overall and be like, look at history and see what they've been doing. It's no secret. It's all black and white in history there. You just got to know where to look. And they tell you what they're going to do. That was Agenda 21. You go down the list. These types of things, they tell you what they're going to do, and then they do it. So you can go read their plans on what they're doing. And there's a way to counter it. And that's just we the people coming together, getting back to the local economy and getting back to taking care of each other.
No, and that's what people don't even, that's why, like, for me, I have such a hard time just being silent, because I understand now the system that's at play and how the system operates and how the system fights to protect himself. And that's why they got rid of Malcolm, right? That's why they got rid of Fred Hampton, because once they got rid of, and this is how I honestly believe, once they got rid of Fred in the 70s, it was easier to infiltrate the Black community because everybody would be scared. And they already were scared because they got rid of the Black Panthers. You spoke too loudly. So, and everybody's got a price. And that's how I see it now, is everybody's got a price. That's why I say that dress. When you give up on your integrity and your values, and you're just okay looking the other way while your community is being fucked over. That's a problem. And that's why I do the things that I do.
When
You gotta call.
if people look at like the Met Council, what did the Met Council start for? Okay, Met Council started because of wastewater treatment. Okay, they were needing wastewater treatment for the Mississippi River because the poo was just flowing right in there, and that's where they were getting their water from too. They were poisoning their water, so that got fixed. Then you had the suburbanization, the move to the suburbs, and the problem there was that everybody had their own well or their own septic, right? And they were literally having feces contaminating their own water. So Minneapolis and St. Paul were literally subsidizing the rural areas getting municipal water and plumbing. Then they moved into other things like the transportation. The sports was huge, and that was with Harv and Marv that they really got into that. And so they subsidize these sports teams coming here and all this, and a lot of times they don't even pay for themselves. And the question then becomes as well with that, is that for the people in the downtown area or outside? Most of it's outside people going there to enjoy those things, which isn't a problem, but at what time are the people of Minneapolis going to recoup what they've paid in to these subsidies? You know, we also need to take care of the individual people that are paying into the subsidies or communities that are.
Exactly. And what my thing of it is too is that, you know, all this information has literally been out here for so long. You know, you have, and I just don't think people even go want to listen to it or go read it. Because you have Gary Webb put out things years ago when it came to the CIA and the Contra and how the whole damn thing basically worked. I just never understood, though, as much as all these people have gone to court and all this stuff that's came out in court and depositions and all that, how come nobody ever says anything?
They know to keep their mouths shut. And then the second side of that is, for white collar crimes, you get a slap on the wrist. Okay, like you can embezzle like Bernie did, millions and billions of dollars, and you're probably going to get a light sentence. And even if you get a heavy sentence, you know where you're going. You're not going to the rough hole. Oh no, you're going to the cushy place. You know, and you're going to get extra protection and all that jazz too. I mean, we had in Minnesota people literally straight up pay off city council members and get a light sentence. That they said, Bassem Sabri, he said that his stay at Leavenworth was like a 4-star hotel. The military people at Leavenworth that get thrown in there, the guards can actually touch you. They can physically like beat you still. So at least on the military side, it ain't like that. I don't know which Leavenworth he was at.
That's crazy.
But the Met Council stuff has a lot to do with like the Downtown Improvement District, which got started right after the Jerry Hoff stuff. And one of the guys that was on the city council at the time, Steve Kramer, actually helped with a lot of that. And then, which is really interesting, again, with the Bassem Sabri guy I just talked about, he was actually on LENA, which is a community organization board, and he was on the law enforcement advising side of it, which is interesting given his history. So anyway, the Downtown Improvement District, if people don't know what that is, it's an area where they designate a certain amount of blocks as the Downtown Improvement District. They are able then through the city, with the city's approval, to tax. And the city doesn't turn down how much they want to tax, but they literally tax per square foot. Okay. And then they provide services, supposedly like keeping the streets clean or planting the plants, whatever it may be. But the individual businesses don't have as much of a say. The board of the Downtown Improvement District does. And here's the key on that, is usually the business owners that have the say. So it's not the individual tenant. So let's say you have a shop downtown, doesn't mean you're sitting on that board because you're not a owner of the business. You're a leaser, you're a renter. And the downtown improvement district really got its push right around the late 90s, right off the back of this, because after Jerry Hoff, what you had was a clamp down on the community. And when I say clamp down on the community, there's cases that were obvious where they had taken a native guy, roughed him up, and had him in the back of, I think there's a trunk of a cop car. They were doing some really not nice things to people, and it got excused as they needed to blow off steam after Hoff. Okay. And then you had an increase in crime, and there's twofold for the increase in crime. Part of that was the actual increase in crime. And the second part of that was people in the community realizing, well, hey, I'm going to get the hell beaten out of me and I'm going to be arrested no matter what, even if I didn't do it. So I might as well do it. Because at least if I'm going to get in trouble, I'm going to get in trouble for something. And just like any kid, if you have kids, that's usually what happens in situations like that. And then also you had taken a generation of black males, and some of them probably were guilty, yes, but some of them, from what we've seen, were not. So they weren't doing a very good job of determining that, and you lock up a generation. Well, then you have a generation of kids with no leadership as well. Okay, so the downtown improvement district was in part started to help people feel safe downtown. So, but they focus on downtown. But it's gotten to the point where they actually have their own thing called the Strategic Justice Partnership. It used to be called the Downtown 100, but now it's called the Strategic Justice Partnership. And what that is with the help of Target, they actually have their own court system. Now, Target has, since their shareholders came out in 2020 and said they needed to stop this, so Target's pulled back because their shareholders are like, yeah, this ain't really constitutional. But the DID is still doing it. Okay, the DID has their own judge. They have their own cops. They have their own parole agents and probation agents and stuff like that. And it gets real interesting because a lot of those guys sit on other boards for the city and stuff like that. Steve Kramer donated to Mayor Fry on behalf of the DID. So the question is, like, when if someone's allowing you to tax and you're donating to them, they're sort of going to let you tax as much as you want. And part of the Downtown Improvement District Strategic Justice Partnership, what they do is they select individuals, and they call them the Downtown 100. They selected them on vagrancy crimes. And so they were making crimes out of non-crimes, things that weren't crimes, like people being drunk, public urination with the homeless and that. Yeah, you don't want that to go on. I get that. But they were actually throwing people in jail for being homeless and that. And then they would trespass them from downtown. It's called a geographical restriction. So then they couldn't even catch a bus through downtown if they worked on the opposite side of town, because if they were downtown, they would get rounded up. And Target paid for Minneapolis and quite a few other cities to get a whole bunch of surveillance cameras in an entire network. They actually have their own dispatch center inside of First Precinct. And they do coordinate with the security in the different places, which, I mean, for an actual crime isn't necessarily a bad thing. But what they've done is they've done it for vagrancy crimes and targeting people. And their whole thing when it first started was to make people feel safe because of the appearance, the ick factor. So they criminalized the ick factor. And that entire system has become a problem
I
because
just wanted to read something real quick because this is the Strategic Justice Partnership, and this is off the DID website. I don't know if you could see it, but as you've been talking, I've been going over the DID website. So you brought up the Strategic Justice Partnership, and I wanted people to understand what that is because this is off their own website, and everything that Robert just said is on their website. So the Strategic Justice Partnership allows a dedicated prosecutor, probation officer to be assigned to up to the top 100 downtown offenders. It is a collaboration between the DID, MPD, Minneapolis City and County Attorney's Office, Hennepin County Community Corrections, St. Stephen's Human Services, the Salvation Army, First Precinct Neighborhood Associations, and other community and businesses and stakeholders. It also includes provisions of housing and treatment services for offenders in need of assistance. So everything that he just said, they have on their websites, all things that you can go look for.
I actually went down and met with the head guy for the DID and or not the DID, for the ambassador program that they have. And I asked them, I said, well, what all resources do you have? Do you have beds available for these people? Because you say on your website you do. And they basically said, no, it all depends on the resources. So then if the stuff is not available, then they're lying on there. They're saying it's available, but it's not. So they actually criminalize people based on things not being available as well.
And that's so Ben asked a question. He says this is very unconstitutional, and this downtown Minneapolis Improvement Council needs to be abolished and removed. This presentation shows that the citizens don't run nothing in Minneapolis. And you are so correct, Ben.
Yeah, like even conservative people, once I explain this to them, are like, that doesn't sound very constitutional to me. Like, that's what I'm saying, because the DID, the reason why it's so dilapidated downtown as far as the actual tenancy rate goes in there, why everybody's not there, is because they charge up to $3 to $5 per square foot for these services. So that's the reason why a burger costs $20 downtown and $15 in north or south, because of that. They actually increase the cost of tenancy, and people aren't going to pay that.
But they also as well, and that's the crazy part, is because as more as I've gone on in this, because you're going to see names of like the pastor of Shiloh Temple. You're going to see Jerry McAfee. You're going to see Lisa Clemens, L. Flowers Jr. Or whoops, my bad, Pookie. I mean, Senior. And you're going to have all these other community organizations, because some of these nonprofits literally have offices downtown.
They go to their meetings too, like the Mill District DID area. They actually went there. One of the days where they were also doing a rally somewhere else. They were there presenting what they could do for violence interrupters downtown. And so all this money is supposedly getting poured into the community. A lot of it's being focused on downtown, not where the problem is. The problem is that with all this, what they've done is they've pushed these individuals then also away from downtown. And so that increases the crime, and they also feel more alienated. As they feel more alienated, they're going to band together, and your gang problem is going to get worse.
So I'm just bringing up their services, their 2024 service plan and estimated budget. Let me see if I can bring this up even bigger. I want to. All right, yeah, this is big.
And it's one big circle. These guys go from the downtown improvement district to places on the city council and into other positions, and realize that the city council in Minneapolis is a launching pad for other careers. A lot of times they go on to be senators, House of Representatives. You go down the list. Norm Coleman, all right, and you can go down the list on that. Our former mayors that went on to Hubert Humphrey, right? You go down the list. So
and this is what's crazy because you look at literally $2.7 million for SAFE, which is ambassadors to patrol sidewalks as eyes and ears, provide greeter hospitality services, and address aggressive behaviors, panhandling. Damn, that's crazy. How is panhandling aggressive? Inebriation, intimidating behavior. Other SAFE initiatives include radio link, camera monitoring, security camera registration program, street activations, bar watch, and court watch. All
Target
things
actually, the DID actually has their own fusion center downtown. Okay, they're part of the fusion center.
right.
So that's part of the problem, is that you have non-law enforcement people acting as law enforcement almost. And also with the spying on that. And the other thing is, when I was down there meeting with them, I asked them what time do they pull them off the streets if they're down there for bar closing. And they said no. So they're there to protect everybody until the suburbanites or the lawyers or whatever it is get done with their evening cap at the bar, right? And then they babysit them as they leave to get home safely. But they're not out there to actually do anything with that. Where you actually have the drunk fights and whatever else.
And they don't be out anyways. When the fight and bar clothes be going down. That's because they use Minneapolis police officers for that shit.
But the police do the same thing. That's what I'm saying, is that they use the police officers for that, but they sit there and they protect those people that are actually probably shouldn't be driving, right? You shouldn't be driving drunk. You shouldn't be getting in fights in parking lots, but they protect that because it's bringing a business into downtown.
There goes Steve Kramer, Minneapolis Downtown Council. So he must have, when they still did this, he must have, because I don't think he's a part of it anymore, is he?
He just left this year.
Did he? Okay, so yeah, because this is their 20th, so this must have been when he was still on there. But you do see a sleep number.
Just people need to realize it's the same people that have been running these same groups for a long time. Okay. And so what they do is they'll be for the police when it benefits them and getting them money. And then they'll be against the police when it's for them and getting them money. And it gets real interesting on that because in the end, nothing ever happens other than they get money. Nothing changes. So if in 30 years things haven't changed and you're having the same people in power, do you have the Star Trib article that we have about the gatekeepers?
Shit, which one? Because I got a few.
We can get that up tomorrow, I guess. The one that the meeting over north in like 2000 something, or at the beginning, where they were talking about how they select who gets to be representatives of the community, and you have to go through them.
Oh no, I don't have that handy right now.
Okay, we can get that up for tomorrow. But literally, these community leaders, they decide who gets to do what. And the problem becomes, in some of these cases, they actually have marched against people that were innocent. And there's questions of the reward money and stuff like that too. But their involvement with law enforcement, while possibly needing to be investigated themselves, is real questionable. And it's not necessarily all of them. I don't necessarily know all these organizations, but the ones that I do know, I have all the documents on, and we can show that. I can do a quick video later on tonight that we can play tomorrow. That'll go through some of that. So I'll let you go for a little bit here.
All right. Yeah. So I just wanted people to see, because I wanted to bring Robert on because first of all, he explains it better. And it's such a web of a story, a web of a tale, and to see that things that were going on years ago are still happening today, and people aren't calling it out. And I see that's why we don't get anywhere, because when you have the same people that have been in power, have been in control of something for so long, until you get rid of those people, until you get rid of those gatekeepers and things like that, that's why we're never going to get anywhere, because it's just bullshit upon bullshit. And that's how I literally feel. And it's you, depending on how it fits their agenda, because Robert did bring up a great point of when it's time to speak out about the police, when it fits their narrative, right? When they want them to speak out, then they speak out, right? But when they want them to stand up for the police, because you're going to see that, you're even with this Ricky Cobb situation, you're going to see Lisa, you're going to see some of them there, and they'll take the ass kicking because they're used to it. They're used to it. And that's what's crazy for me. It's sad, and it hurts me that we can't even have people that want unity but don't want accountability. They want unity but not accountability. And I say that for a lot of reasons, because if people actually wanted unity, they would be a part of accountability, and they're not. You don't see Bobby Champion, Cedric Frazier, who are all going to be asking for votes this year. The same thing with Amy Klobuchar. Now, they want unity. We want accountability.
Well, and it's key to realize that these individuals have been doing the same thing for quite a while. Okay, the cops have been brainwashed as well. If you think about it, the trauma-induced mind control, what that is, we talked about it a little bit yesterday, is where you always have to have trauma in front of somebody in order to control their actions. They have to be in fear. That happened a lot in the 90s. Okay, you had the Rodney King, then the Jerry Hoff stuff. Then you had the World Trade Center bombing in 92, Oklahoma in 95, Ruby Ridge, Waco, the embassy bombing in 98, the coal stuff. Okay, and what they did with the war on drugs stuff is they made it look like it was the entire community. They taught police that it was these super predator black kids. You had the first lady of the frickin' United States saying it, who is Klobuchar's friend, Hillary Clinton.
Right.
Okay. And so you have to realize that these police were also trained at the time of it. It is a warfare type situation. And it was pretty violent in 95, let's say, and some of the police that joined for the right ideas and for the right thing may have been trained wrong and had the wrong idea. They didn't know that the government was bringing in the drugs. If you look at some of how Bob Kroll got to be Bob Kroll, and shortly before the Hoff shooting, he had been responding to a fight or something like that. It was a proper arrest. His partner got knocked out because the crowd got mad and started beating them with a pipe, and he got knocked pretty good too. So then after that, obviously, he's more wary of the community, thinking that they're all going to do that to him. There's plenty of officers I can show that happened, and then they started taking it on the community. Hey, I'm going to be the first one to throw the punch if this is going to happen, and they actually went overboard with it. Especially after the Hoff shooting, the command gave them the excuse, and they were literally excusing it. The cops were wrong. Yes, I'm not saying that they were right, but I'm saying that we've never done the actual community policing bullshit that we talk about. So maybe we should actually try that for once, and the way that they were trained was wrong. So if we're using wrong training for the cops and wrong training for the community, maybe we can do something else and fix the system, not keep on doing it 30 years later and saying, oh, well, why is there a problem? Well, maybe because we're doing it wrong.
Exactly. And we're gonna leave off today and get back in this tomorrow. So but I want people to please share this, and tomorrow will definitely be showing more documents, just like we did a little bit today, but we'll definitely be going into more context tomorrow with showing it, because now I know a direction I want to go, and especially when it comes to showing the documents and things like that. And I know Robert is very, very good at putting things together, so I'm very excited to see this PowerPoint, because we're gonna show you the money trail. We're gonna show you a little bit of the history, which we've already shown you the history. So I'm hoping that people can just, I'm not asking anybody to be, I'm just asking people to come with an open mind. When you watch this and you share this to your friends, tell them to come with an open mind, because that's what we need right now, is the people to be open-minded and to be able to really consider and to think about these situations. Because if people were calling it out and people were paying attention, we wouldn't have any wrongfully convicted people in prison right now. Right? We wouldn't have families wondering who Crime Stoppers paid for a bogus tip. Right? Because there's plenty of that. And then can't even find out who they paid that tip to.
And actually, the Jerry Hoff case was the first case where Minnesota ruled that cities can fund, through their own volition, rewards for crimes as well. I was supposed to get a PowerPoint done for today. I had a little bit of family stuff come up last night, so I do apologize to everybody. I was planning on being a little bit more prepared, but
we're gonna have it tomorrow, so we're gonna go a little extended tomorrow. So, like I said, come back. We'll have a presentation so that you guys will be able to see, and I will be continually putting comments and different links today in this video. So
I did want to bring up one last thing, if that's okay, especially for Ruth, if she's listening. The stuff that I sent you last night, because we talk a lot about the reparations and whatever for the African Americans, but especially the natives that were not participating in the War of 1862. We promised them a shit ton, like 80 acres apiece and stuff like that. That then in the 80s, the government came along and said, by the way, we're going to give this back to the tribe that disowned you, and you get jack crap. And we're going to allow them to build all these casinos, and that you get none of that either. And so that is a problem with some of the natives here in Minnesota, because the ones that got promised stuff and that promised that they wouldn't be treated like that did. And there's court cases on that, and then you can go down the list. So we did play both sides on that one too.
So yeah, and I was gonna send her that stuff too that you sent me last night. I just haven't had the chance to. But so Ruth, if you are listening, expect some stuff from me today. With that being said, man, come back tomorrow, 9 o'clock, same time, same place. And be prepared, because we will be prepared. Not that we wasn't today, because there was some, for me especially, there was things that with Ricky Cobb, charging, coming out, and that for me was something that needed to be discussed, because it's things that affect our community, and not just locally but nationally, and is really it matters. So with that being said, y'all have a great Thursday. We'll see y'all again tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Be there or be square. Win or fail, freedom or jail, heaven or hell, wish us well.
Every day, fighting for my life. every day, fighting for my life. Fighting for my life. Fighting for my bread. Grew from the seed you thought was rot. I think not. Fire bred desire to rise above denial. To rise from former ashes to face new trial. Trial or triumph. I am enough. Trial to triumph. I am enough.